The cry in the dunes. The sun burned like fire above the endless sand. The wind was hot, carrying dust that stung the skin. A lone man, wearing a brown scarf over his face, walked slowly through the desert. His boots sank into the soft golden dunes. His name was Jace, a scavenger, a human, searching for old tech, water, or anything to sell back at the border outpost. His water bottle was nearly empty. His map was torn. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. Then he heard it. A sound. Faint. Weak, almost like a whisper. A child's cry. Jace froze. He turned his head, listening. Nothing. Just wind. He waited. Then, there it was again. A soft, painful cry, like someone too weak to scream properly. He moved fast, following the sound, his heart beating faster. Every instinct told him it was a trap. But he didn't stop. He reached a small hill of sand and dropped to his knees. There, half buried in the dune, was a small body. Alien, a little girl. Skin pale purple, her arms shaking, her eyes shut tight. She looked no older than 6. Her clothes were torn. Her lips were cracked. She was freezing, though the desert was, boiling hot. Her breathing was shallow. Jace looked around. No footprints, no shipwrecks, no caravan. She was truly alone out here. "Hey, stay with me," Jace said softly, brushing sand off her face. Her eyes opened, huge, glowing blue eyes, full of fear. She whimpered and tried to crawl away, but she was too weak. "It's okay," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you, I'm human." She didn't speak, but she stopped moving. She stared at him, confused, scared. Jace took off his scarf and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. He poured the last drops of water into the cap and held it to her mouth. She drank, lips trembling. Then, her eyes widened. The sand behind Jace moved. A hand, dry and rotten, broke through the dune. Jace jumped back, pulling the girl into his arms. Another hand burst up, then a face. Hollow eyes, black tongue. A desert, zombie. Then another, and another. All around them, the sand came alive, corpses rising from shallow graves hidden under the dunes. "No time to think," Jace growled, lifting the girl. "Hold on." He ran, the girl clinging to his chest. Behind them, the dead followed. Slow, jerking movements, arms reaching, mouths moaning. There were more than 10, maybe 20. The wind screamed louder now, pushing sand into the air. A sandstorm was coming. Jace ran faster, eyes squinting, lungs burning. He leaped over a cracked bone, then slid down a hill of sand. He held the girl tight, protecting her with his body. She said something in a strange tongue. It sounded like, "They're coming for me." The storm hit. Sand filled the sky. Jace couldn't see more than a few feet. But the cries of the undead were louder now, closer. He found a small rock outcrop and ducked behind it. He gently laid the girl down and drew a long, sharp knife from his belt. He had no gun, just this blade. The girl looked up at him, eyes wide. "You're gonna be okay," he said. He didn't know if that was true. He stood at the edge of the rock, ready to fight. He saw one zombie approach, skin hanging, no lips, just teeth. Jace stabbed it in the head, pulling the blade out quickly. Another came, then another. He slashed, dodged, kicked. Blood, thick and black, splashed the sand. He screamed in anger, fighting with all he had. Behind him, the girl whispered again. Her eyes glowed brighter. She raised her hand, and for a second, the air shimmered. The zombies slowed. Jace looked back at her, shocked. What had she done? Then he turned, just in time to cut down another walking corpse. The storm howled. The undead groaned. But Jace stood tall, blood on his shirt, knife in hand, protecting the little alien girl. He wasn't leaving her behind, not now, not ever. The wind screamed louder now, like a monster roaring in the dark. Sand whipped through the air like sharp blades. Jace pulled the alien girl close to his chest and ran, not just from the undead but from something worse building behind him. The desert was no longer quiet. It was alive, angry. Each step was like walking through fire. The sand, hot as boiling water, burned through his boots. His scarf was gone. His throat felt like broken glass. But he didn't stop. The girl in his arms had stopped crying. She was watching the storm behind them, watching it like it was chasing her. Her lips moved, whispering in a language Jace didn't know. She was casting some kind of protection, maybe. Or praying. He didn't ask. He just ran. The zombies didn't stop either. They were slower, yes. But they didn't need rest. They didn't feel pain. And now, more of them were crawling out of the dunes, some with twisted animal bones for limbs, others with masks made from old metal. Some looked like ancient soldiers still gripping shattered weapons. Then Jace saw it, a shape in the sandstorm. Giant. Moving with slow, heavy steps. It wasn't just another zombie. It was something else. A tall figure, at least 9 feet, covered in black robes that floated without wind. Its face was a bone-white skull and its eyes burned like fire. The sandstorm followed it like a cloak made of dust and death. Jace's heart dropped. Zira, the alien girl, clutched his chest tighter. She whispered, "It's the Sand Judge." Jace didn't know what that meant, but the way her voice trembled said enough. That thing wasn't just another monster. It was the leader, and it was hunting her. "Hold on," he said. He turned sharply, feet sliding. They dropped into a low ravine where the sand was harder and strange rock pillars jutted from the ground. It gave him some cover, but not for long. Behind him he heard a deep voice, not spoken but inside his head. "You carry the cursed, the one marked by flame. She belongs to the dunes." Jace gritted his teeth. "Then come take her yourself." How? Didn't know if the monster could hear him, but it felt good to say it. He found an old satellite dish half buried in the sand. With quick moves he used his blade to break the dish free and flipped it over to form a crude sled. He placed Zira on it, tied her down with scraps of fabric from his belt, and grabbed a long cable. "Time to slide, kid." He sprinted forward and jumped, pulling the cable behind him. The dish sled dragged across the slope, cutting through the sand. Zira held on tight, her eyes wide with shock. Jace ran like a madman. Zombies followed, but they slipped in the sand. One by one, they tumbled. The storm behind them raged louder. The Sand Judge glided forward, slow but steady, always watching. They reached a flatter stretch. Jace kept pulling, sweat pouring down his face. He saw broken ruins ahead, stone structures buried in sand, perhaps from a lost alien city. If he could reach those ruins, maybe he could find shelter. Zira suddenly cried out. Jace turned. A zombie had jumped from the rocks above. He dropped flat. The zombie missed and landed face first in the sand. Jace stabbed it before it could get back up. He turned to Zira. "Are you okay?" She nodded, but her hands were glowing again, this time brighter. She reached forward and touched the sand. It shimmered, and a narrow path opened in front of them like the sand had been pushed aside. Jace didn't question it. He ran down the path, pulling her faster. In the distance, a structure rose from the sand. A stone arch. It looked like a gateway. A doorway to something old. Something forgotten. As they reached it, the glowing path behind them collapsed, swallowed by the dunes. The Sand Judge stopped at the edge, unable to follow. Inside the arch, Jace pulled Zira into the shadows. His chest heaved. He dropped to one knee. Zira looked up at him. "You should leave me," she whispered. "I'm the reason they're chasing you." Jace shook his head. "Maybe, but you're also the reason I'm still running." She stared at him, confused. "You saved me back there," he added. "Whatever you did to the sand, that was you." She nodded slowly. The silence between them was heavy. Outside, the wind screamed again. But Jace just smiled. "Let them come. I've got something they don't." Zira tilted her head. "What's that?" He looked at her and said, "A reason to fight." The stone arch closed behind them like a mouth-swallowing light. Jace and Zira stood in silence, surrounded by shadows and cool air. For the first time in hours, there was no sand, no wind, and no zombies. Only stillness. Zira's eyes glowed softly, in the dark. She looked around, her small hand still gripping Jace's arm. "This place is not dead," she whispered. Jace looked ahead. The tunnel inside the arch was carved into the earth. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, alien writing, old and forgotten. The deeper they went, the more it smelled like dry bones and old blood. At the end of the tunnel, they stepped into a wide open space, a hidden oasis. But this wasn't the kind of oasis Jace had hoped for. It was a graveyard. Palm trees stood like skeletons, dried and cracked. A black pond sat in the center, still and silent, with bones floating across the surface. Stone huts lay broken all around, homes once full of life, now full of silence. Zira stepped closer to one of the huts. She knelt and picked up a small metal toy shaped like a bird. It chirped once, then died again. Jace scanned the area. What happened here? Zira held the toy close. This was a refugee place, a sanctuary, long ago. My people ran here during the old wars. The undead didn't find them for many years. She looked up at him, her voice soft. But they always find us. Jace's eyes narrowed. Something about this place was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The air was too dry, the silence too perfect. Suddenly, a low hum echoed from one of the broken stone huts. Jace turned, raising his knife. From inside the hut, a figure crawled out. Tall, thin, wrapped in cloth and bone armor. Its eyes glowed blue, just like Zira's, but dimmer, fading. It was alive, barely. An old alien woman, her body twisted with age and pain. Zira gasped. "Ishari?" The old woman looked at the girl, then at Jace. "You brought the flame-bearer here," she said in a voice like dry wind. "She should not be here. This place is cursed." "I'm not leaving her alone," Jace said. The old woman hissed, stepping closer. "The dead are watching, they smell her blood. She was marked by the priests, marked to feed the judge. You are both doomed." Jace stood his ground. "Then help us." Ishari stared at him. Then she smiled, sad and broken. "You are like the first ones. Brave, foolish." She turned and pointed to the black pond. "There is an altar beneath the water, hidden. It holds a memory, a message left behind by those who died here. It may help you understand what she is and what is coming." Jace nodded and stepped toward the water. The surface was like glass. He took a breath and dove in. It was colder than he expected. Darkness swallowed him. Bones brushed his face. His hands touched smooth stone. Then, light. A vision struck his mind. He saw the sand judge standing before a circle of alien priests. They chanted. A small girl, Zira, was tied to a black stone. Her blood ran down ancient symbols. The sand judge reached out and touched her, forehead burning a mark into her skin. Then the voice came again, loud and cruel. "One day she will awaken, and she will burn worlds." Jace burst out of the water, gasping. Zira was waiting. Ishari looked at him, her face grim. "What did you see?" Zira asked. Jace looked into her eyes. "They plan to use you. Your blood. Your power. You were born to be a weapon." Zira stepped back. Her hands trembled. "Then why save me?" Jace stood up, dripping water, his voice hard. "Because you're not a weapon. You're a child, and no one decides your future but you." Suddenly, the ground shook outside. The desert wind returned. Sand began pouring through cracks in the ceiling. Ishari's eyes widened. "They found you." Jace grabbed Zira's hand. "Time to move." They ran through the ruins as the first zombies crawled through the tunnel. The black pond turned red as more undead emerged from the earth. The sand judge stood just outside the arch, watching, waiting. Zira turned to Ishari. Come with us. The old woman shook her head. My time is over. Yours is just beginning. Run, little fire. With that, Jace and Zira disappeared into the tunnels beyond the oasis, their path lit only by the strange glow of her skin and the fire she had yet to unleash. They ran through the narrow tunnel deeper into the old earth, away from the screams of the dead and the falling bones of the oasis. The path twisted like a serpent. The air was damp now, cool. Echoes of footsteps followed them, but Jace couldn't tell if it was the undead or just their fear chasing them. Zira didn't speak. She walked beside Jace, quiet, staring down at her. Hands, they were glowing again, faint like a fire under skin. She looked afraid of them. Jace finally stopped. We need to rest. He found a broken stone chamber and checked the corners. Nothing moved inside. It smelled of dust and old iron. Zira sat down slowly. She curled up with her arms around her knees. Jace sat across from her, breathing hard. His body ached. He had cuts across his shoulder, bruises on his chest, but he watched the girl not with fear but with curiosity. You saved me, he said. Back there at the pond, I would have drowned. Zira didn't answer at first. Then in a soft voice she said, I wasn't supposed to feel anything. Jace blinked. What? My kind. We were made in temples, designed by the death priests, grown in chambers, not born. Each of us had a number, not a name. She looked up at him, eyes full of sadness. But I gave myself a name. Zira. I read it on an old book once. It sounded warm. Jace stared at her. A child who named herself, who was treated like a tool, a weapon, but still chose warmth. You chose well, he said. She gave a weak smile, then looked at his wounds. May I help you? She asked. He nodded. She placed her small glowing hands over his shoulder. It felt warm at first, then burning. Jace gritted, his teeth, but didn't pull away. In seconds the cuts sealed. The bruises faded. Zira's hands trembled afterward. She pulled them back, breathing hard. It takes energy from me, she whispered. You don't have to do that, Jace said. She looked at him. You didn't have to save me either. He chuckled. Fair point. For a moment, they sat in silence. Then Jace asked, Why are the zombies so interested in you? Zira hesitated. The death priest said I carry a spark, something from the old sun gods. A tiny piece of fire that burns even in death. They wanted to feed that fire to the sand judge. Feed, Jace repeated. Yes, she said. So, he could wake, become stronger, spread death across all galaxies. And you refused? I ran, she said. And I wasn't supposed to run. That's why they cursed me. That's why the dead follow. Jace shook his head. So they made a child with power, marked her as a gift, and when she wanted to be free, they sent death after her. She nodded. Jace stood up, fire in his eyes. Then we burned their curse to ash. Zira stared at him. You're not what they say you are, Jace said. They built you to be a tool, but you're more. I've seen it. You heal. You care. You chose your own name. That's more human than most humans I've met. Zira looked down. Her hands glowed again, brighter this time. The air shimmered softly. Suddenly, the tunnel behind them filled with a loud clink, a metallic sound echoing through the dark. Jace pulled his blade. A shadow moved outside. But it wasn't a zombie. It was a machine. A floating orb with long spider legs. An old guardian bot, probably from the original alien city. Its eye turned red as it scanned Jace. Hostile detected, it said in a broken voice. Surrender the fire child. Zira gasped. Jace stepped in front of her. You'll have to kill me first. The bot charged a weapon. But before it could fire, Zira stood. Her eyes shone like twin stars, her body lit with golden flames. Leave him alone, she said. A shockwave burst from her body. Light, heat, energy. The bot exploded into pieces, metal flying everywhere. When the light faded, Zira collapsed. Jace caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "I didn't mean to do that." "You protected me," he whispered, "like I protected you." She gripped his shirt. "I'm scared." He pulled her close. "Me too. But we're still here. And as long as we're breathing, we fight." Outside, the wind howled again. But this time, the fear was different. The Sand Judge had felt the burst of power, and now, he knew exactly where they were. The air was no longer still. It rumbled, not like thunder, but like 1,000 bones shaking together beneath the ground. Jace could feel it in his boots. Zira felt it too. Her hand trembled in his, her glow dim but alive. "They're coming," she whispered. Jace nodded. The old ruin they had found was now their only shelter. It was once a great hall, maybe for worship or gatherings. Now it was cracked and broken, holes in the roof, sand on the floor, stone walls blackened by fire. Jace looked around. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He began working fast, dragging. Broken metal beams to block doorways, turning shattered stone benches into barricades. He found old alien wires in the wall and stripped them bare, twisting them into traps. Zira helped where she could, using her glow to light the dark corners. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Jace didn't stop moving. "Because running is done. If we keep running, they'll never stop chasing us." "But what if we can't win?" Jace paused. Then he looked at her. "Then we go down fighting. Together." Zira blinked. No one had ever said that to her before. Not the priests. Not the bots. Not even the other failed children like her. For the first time, she felt not alone. Outside, the sound grew louder. Then, footsteps. Soft at first, then many, dozens, hundreds. The undead were here. Jace grabbed his knife and tied a strip of cloth around the handle. "Get to cover. Hide behind that beam. Only use your light if you must." Zira didn't argue. She crouched behind the thickest pillar and pressed her back to it. Jace stood in the center of the hall. He waited. The first zombie stepped through, the broken arch, its body dry and cracked, eyes glowing red, mouth hanging open with black teeth. It saw Jace and ran. Jace moved like lightning. His blade flashed once. The zombie dropped, its head rolling across the sand. But the next one came, then another, then 10. They rushed in from every broken wall, clawing and moaning. Jace fought like an animal, swinging, kicking, slashing. He used every trap he made. Spikes in the sand caught feet. Wires tripped legs. A beam crashed down, crushing 3 at once, but still they came. Zira peeked from her cover. She saw him bleeding, his arm cut, his face bruised, but still fighting. For her. And her heart burned. Not with fear, with power. She stood. Her body began to glow, stronger than ever. Her hands lifted and the ground shook. A pulse of heat swept through the chamber. Zombies stopped. Their heads turned. They saw her. Zira's eyes lit like suns. "No more," she shouted. The light burst from her, knocking the first row of zombies off their feet. Their skin turned to ash. Their bones cracked. Jace shielded his eyes. When he looked again, Zira was floating, just a little, her feet off the ground, her arms raised like wings. And then, behind the crowd, he saw him, the Sand Judge. He entered slowly, silent, tall as a tower, robes dragging like smoke. He raised one long hand. The zombies froze, all at once. Then, they turned, not toward Jace, toward Zira. "Give her to me," the judge's voice rang inside their heads. "She is not yours," Jace shouted. "She was made for me," the voice replied. "She is the final flame, the last spark of the Starborn. Her power will light my rise, or burn your galaxy to dust." Jace stepped forward. "You want her?" he said, raising his bloodied knife. "Then try and take her." The judge moved, faster than expected, but Zira was ready. Her light exploded. A ring of flame burst out from her body. The zombies turned to dust instantly. The ground cracked. The sky above the broken roof glowed red. Even the sand judge stepped back. Zira landed beside Jace, panting hard. She looked up at him. "Still want to fight?" she asked. Jace grinned. "Now we fight together." The sand judge raised both arms, summoning something darker from the shadows. His true army. The real war had begun. The floor was cracked. The roof was open. The fire from Zira's soul still glowed in the air. But now, the true danger stood before them, the sand judge's real army. These were not like the earlier zombies. These moved faster. They wore armor made of bones and glass. Their eyes were burning red. Their mouths whispered ancient chants. Jace held his knife tighter. His arms were shaking, but he didn't step back. Zira stood beside him. Her light had dimmed. She was breathing hard, her legs weak. That last blast had taken too much from her. She had never used that much power before. "They're different," she said. "Stronger," Jace replied. "No. They're not just dead, they're memories." Jace frowned. "What do you mean?" Zira closed her eyes. "The sand judge doesn't just raise bodies. He traps souls, souls of warriors, mothers, children. He forces them to fight again, even if they don't want to." Jace looked out at the approaching army, and then he heard it. Soft crying. A whisper. A voice in his head saying, "Please, help us." The army was made of victims. They were not the enemy. They were prisoners. Jace turned to Zira. "Can you free them?" She opened her eyes. "Maybe, but I'll need your help." "My help," he said. Zira stepped closer. "Your will is strong, stronger than mine. My power burns, but your heart guides. Together, maybe we can change this." She placed her hand on his chest. For a second, everything went silent. Then, something clicked. Their minds connected. Jace saw flashes. Zira's memories, her creation, her first breath, the priests marking her, the pain, the loneliness, the fear. Zira saw his memories. Earth, war, family lost to violence, the pain of being forgotten, the long walks alone through alien lands. Their pain became one. And then, their strength did too. Zira's light flowed into Jace. But it didn't. Burn it settled, like warmth in winter. His body healed. His knife glowed gold. His eyes turned silver for a moment, reflecting the stars. Zira gasped. "You accepted it." "I told you," Jace said. "We fight together." He turned to the army and walked forward. Not to attack, to speak. "Your fight is over," he called out. "I know you were stolen from your homes, your families. You don't belong to the judge. You never did." Some of the warriors paused. Their hands shook. Their eyes flickered from red to blue. But the sand judge growled. His voice thundered inside the ruins. "You dare steal my army?" He raised his hand. Black lightning crashed into the stone near Jace. Jace stood firm. Zira stepped beside him and raised her hands. A shield of fire formed around them. The sand judge screamed, and the flames answered. Zira floated again, her power, no longer wild but focused, controlled. Her body shimmered with gold dust. She turned to the undead warriors. "I offer you a choice," she said. "Stay his slaves or be free and rest." One warrior dropped his sword, then another, then a child spirit wrapped in old robes walked toward her and touched her hand. A burst of light. The child vanished. Peacefully. More followed. The judge roared, "I will burn this world before I lose to a child." He stepped forward, arms out, sand rising like waves around him. Jace looked at Zira. "Let's end this." She nodded. They charged together. Jace moved like fire. Zira flew above, her hands glowing with power. The judge fired black beams. Zira blocked them with golden shields. Jace reached him first. He stabbed his glowing blade into the judge's chest. The judge grabbed him by the neck, lifting him high, but Zira soared down like a comet. She touched the blade, her fire surged into it, and the judge screamed. His body cracked, light poured out. A final voice escaped his mouth, not of rage, but of pain. "Thank you." Then silence. The sand judge turned to ash. His army faded like smoke. The wind stopped. The desert was quiet again. Jace fell to one knee. Zira caught him. He smiled weakly. "Did we win?" She nodded. "Yes. But not just the battle." He looked up at her. "You freed them." She helped him stand. "No, we did." They looked out across the desert. The sky was turning soft blue. A new dawn. The desert was silent. Not the silence of fear, but the silence that comes after a storm has passed. The sand judge was gone. His ashes had melted into the wind. The ancient undead army had vanished like ghosts finally allowed to rest. But in the ruins of the stone temple, the fire still glowed. Zira sat beside Jace on a broken pillar, her small hands folded in her lap, her golden eyes fixed on the rising sun. "I feel light," she said softly. Jace, his arm bandaged and blood still on his shirt, nodded slowly. That's what peace feels like. They had spent the night burying what remained of the old spirits. Jace had made crude grave markers. Zira had whispered over each one, helping their souls leave for good. She was tired now, but she smiled in a way Jace had never seen before. Not a forced smile, not a smile full of pain or fear, but one that belonged to someone free. Later, they walked together, far away from the broken ruins. The desert, no longer, felt cursed. Flowers, small and pale, had begun blooming on the edges of the dunes. Life had returned where only death once walked. Zira stopped walking and turned to him. "Do you think it's over?" Jace looked around. The judge is gone. The dead are silent. But peace never lasts forever. "Then what now?" she asked. "You live," Jace said. "You learn what it means to have a choice. To eat when you're hungry. To sleep without chains. To smile without fear." She blinked. "That sounds simple." "It is, and it's beautiful." Zira smiled again, but peace didn't last long. That evening, a ship appeared in the sky. Not a slaver ship, not one from the death priests. It was a clean, smooth white vessel, human-made, the kind that belonged to survey teams or rescue squads. Jace looked up as it landed near the edge of a canyon. He placed a hand on Zira's shoulder. "Stay behind me." The ship door opened. 3 humans stepped out, 2 soldiers in light armor and 1 woman in a long coat with silver eyes and a datapad. "Jace Thorne," the woman called. Jace's body stiffened. "How do you know my name?" The woman smiled. "Earth Command never forgets its lost soldiers." She stepped forward. "We picked up strange signals, flashes of old alien tech and firebursts strong enough to be seen from orbit. We thought it might be a weapon. Instead, we found you." She turned to Zira. "And her." Zira stepped behind Jace's arm, her eyes wary. "She's not a threat," Jace said quickly. The woman raised a brow. "She destroyed a soul-anchored Death Lord. That kind of power is dangerous." Jace stepped in front of Zira. "She's a child. One they tried to turn into a weapon, but she chose something else." "And you?" the woman asked. "I chose to stand with her." There was a long pause. Then the woman spoke gently. "We'd like to take you both back. You can explain everything. Help her live freely, help her learn." Jace looked back at Zira. "Do you want to go with them?" Zira looked unsure. Then she stepped forward. "I will go," she said. "But only if he comes too." The woman nodded. "Of course." A week passed. Zira stood by the window of her new room aboard the human cruiser Solar Rise. She wore a simple soft robe now. No chains, no symbols, just fabric she chose herself. Her hair was cleaner, her glow softer. She watched the stars pass, and then she smiled. Because she heard boots, and Jace walked in, holding a mug of warm cocoa. I figured you haven't tried Earth chocolate yet. She took it, sipped slowly. It's sweet. Strange. He laughed. That's what most people say about Earth. She looked up at him. They gave me papers today. I'm allowed to choose a family name. Oh yeah? Jace sat beside her. Zira held up a small card. Zira Thorn. He blinked. After me? You said family means who stays, she said. You stayed. So, you're my family. Jace didn't speak for a moment. Then he nodded. Zira Thorn, huh? Has a nice sound. Months passed. Zira learned to read all human languages. She trained with special teachers, ones who could help her control her power, but she never forgot Jace. He was there for every test, every hard night, every new dream. One night she had a nightmare, the sand judge's voice echoing in her mind again. But Jace sat beside her bed, held her hand, and stayed until morning. He taught her how to play cards. She taught him how to meditate, using firelight. They learned together. He stopped calling her a weapon. She stopped calling herself cursed. 1 year later. A ceremony was held on the outer edge of the Earth Zone. Zira wore a simple white dress. Jace stood beside her. The commander of the ship handed her a small badge, a golden flame wrapped in silver. Zira Thorn, the commander said, you are hereby named Guardian of Flame and Hope, protector of worlds that cannot protect themselves. Zira accepted the badge with shaking hands. Then she turned to Jace and whispered, I didn't think I'd ever belong anywhere. You don't have to belong to a place, he said. You belong to yourself. In the years that followed, Zira and Jace became known across the galaxy, not as warriors, but as guardians. They stopped wars before they started. They rescued orphans from shattered moons. They burned corruption from the bones of dying systems. But to each other, they were more. They were family. And every time someone whispered, she was made to destroy, Jace would answer, they called me her doom, but I became her guardian. And Zira would smile, light glowing gently from her eyes, and say, I chose him, and I choose him still.